Welcome back. And again, Shayna or Shauna. Let me know which way I should be saying your name because I want to say it correctly. I still can't believe you're joining from 2 a.m. in Spain. I think it's incredible. Thank you for being here. And Shauna. Okay, thank you. Perfect. Beautiful. I like the alliteration of your name. Let's see. Okay. So for today, we have a few more people signed up. Today is a little lighter, which I fully expected. So this pandemic has you ask. Hey, I am happy to have you here. And I think it's really beautiful. And, sharing this space with everyone that has joined this week has been really, truly an honor. So I'm here for it. I'm here for the 2 a.m. Across the world sessions. So yeah, for tonight, I'm just going to have everyone say hello, note where you're joining from. Hey. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most intense, just share how you're feeling day to day. And obviously this shifts. So maybe you just drop into how you're feeling now. When it comes to fear, and any answer is totally fine. You could be like, I only feel a 1, but I'm still here anyway. It doesn't really matter. Just curious. And if you brought a beverage, let me know which beverage you brought tonight. I don't know if I've ever even said hello in here myself. So, there's Lucky Toes. Hi, Melissa. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I am in Colorado. And I brought chamomile rose tea. I'm probably at a 7 right now, most likely because I'm presenting information and it always makes me nervous, a little anxious and worried. But yeah, so I'll give a couple of moments for others to join. Let's see. Make sure. Yeah, I hope everyone is able to hear okay as well. So yeah, if you have a chance, go ahead and say hello in the chat before we dive in today. Our recording. Yeah, good. And I'll give it just a little bit more time. And I'm drinking H2O. Very nice. I like that you made it fancy. Melissa, you weren't here last night and we did dropping our favorite emojis right now. Though it's like some people can easily access that on the computer or the phone or whatever, but yeah, other people couldn't find it. So we had some people describing their favorite emojis versus actually dropping them in. Just to keep it a little bit lighter, since we went into some grief and guilt and, heavier, low vibe energies. Welcome, Jill. Ooh, I love that tea. I can only drink one of them though, because it makes my throat feel funny if I drink too much of it. I don't know if that's a thing for anybody else. Like when it's fruit tea, that will happen to me. All right, welcome, Lindsay. Okay.
Hi, I'm just getting Sig a treat and then.
Beautiful. Yeah, Frankie decided not to join. Well, she's outside my door, but I know she'll get really active if I let her in. So I can hear her.
Starving, so.
4 Fear Wise. Hi, Leah. Ooh, ginseng lemon. Yum. Yum. How are you all feeling most of you have been here, at least one, or I think everyone's been here at least one or all the other evenings. How are you feeling from the last couple of nights? Anything new coming forward from you? Are you feeling like it's resonating, settling in, any shifts, or just a lot to take in? Or all of the above?
All the above.
All of the above. Okay, Lindsay. Lindsay and I have had a pretty jam-packed week, the two of us this week, so it's been really nice. But we've been doing lots of movement, so. Yeah, resonating. I was angry and about things I didn't realize I was even thinking about. That's the beautiful thing about the justified anger practice, or like tuning into that. Um, there's this, I think a couple of weeks ago, I had this like massive realization of this justified anger that I was carrying underneath all these levels of me being angry at other people. But the anger that was like underneath all of it, it was easier to be angry at other people than it was to be angry at myself. So I was like allowing these kind of like surface level things to show up so that I didn't have to look at what I was mad at myself for. And then under that was a justified anger toward like God that like was from when I was like 13. So it was a really intense realization for sure. Vanessa, feeling a little scared of today's class. Oh yeah, I brought a new beer. Oh, after this, I'm having a glass of wine. I'm excited. Or maybe if we have beer, that sounds really good. I don't want to say don't be scared, Vanessa. I think you'll find it interesting and truthfully, and however it lands for you is totally fine. Truthfully, I think day 2 is probably the most intense, just because I think fear is something that we all like easily relate to, or we have definitions of it where we can easily bring it to mind, versus guilt and grief, I think, resonate a little deeper in our system and we maybe aren't as connected to it, but we'll see. I know you were like releasing a lot yesterday, which was really good. Yes, and Shauna, first day crying and sadness, second day better. Yeah, a ball of moodiness. Oh, yes, 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 I hear you. And I know I've said this on each session, but meeting yourself, truly, truly believe that meeting yourself exactly where you are is where the magic is where the shifting happens, is where you can kind of see it and then separate yourself from it and almost like observe the situation from a very observational point of view. This is an interesting piece of data for me to work with. And what does it mean? And then what do I need, in the moment? You have so many answers just like within you in any of the situations. So I just want to applaud you for allowing the crying and the sadness and allowing the moodiness. And yeah, we'll get into the fears in just a moment. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, Vanessa, recognizing and processing things I wasn't shining a light on before. Yeah, and that's what hopefully this is for. It's really, I think with the energy of 2020 really hitting us by surprise at, in the early stages, and then this continuation of it just like continuing to go on and on. When the hell is this ever going to end and shift and get better? And almost like, we know we can handle intensity or a certain state of discomfort, for segments of time. But this prolonged amount really requires a lot of strengthening, a lot of, I keep talking about building the nervous system, a lot of breaking it down and starting all over again, a lot of releasing it all out, a lot of compassion. So just keep that in mind. So it does seem like this is our crew tonight. So I'm just going to get going. And as usual, feel free to share anything in the chat. And I'm going to put this on. Let's see, get the video going. Cool. So Vanessa, you are not driving today. Like it. And I love that's a fiddle fig, right? Love your fiddle fig in there. Gorgeous. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe I've probably already told all of you about my plant Jupiter in the back. Today is Jupiter's day, and that's her name. Anyway, I tell everyone that like way too many times. So we're just going to move on. Let's see. Well, you all know me because you've all been here, right? Yeah, I had a couple of other people that were going to signed up for this that I did not recognize. However, I really wanted to share my new line that just came through. So I had a friend this week give me a new title So I'm just going to try it on with you. So my name is Beth Porter, founder and CLO of Earth and Ether. CLO meaning Chief Learning Officer, because I'm committed to being in a state of openness and learning and growth in the field of healing and transformation and overall life bettering subjects. I had a friend that was, she's a projector. So if you know human design, projectors are the folks in your life that are here to kind of see into you or see into systems, and they have like an advisor type role. And my lovely, if you don't have a projector friend, you should go get one. And I know there are a couple of them, quite a few of them in this room tonight. So anyway, she the other day was like, "You're the CLO of your company, of your business." And I was like, "What?" Anyway, so Chief Learning Officer here, and I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you for being here tonight and hanging on for the last few nights. Really happy to spend this next bit of time with you and in your energy. And thanks, Leah, the boss title. Actually, my friend is in the C-suite. I think she's like the chief strategy officer for her company. So I was like, yeah, I'll accept that. I'll take it. About to make new business cards now. Not that anyone needs business cards right now, since we're not physically seeing anyone. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. So let's see. Oh, I wanted to ask this too. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you think, and this again can be how you feel right now or just overall with this pandemic, do you think you're being more impacted and affected by your fear or other people's fear? So feel free to drop that into the chat, or maybe it's both, but just curious if that resonates, if you've noticed that with yourself. And your own fear. Yeah, both. Totally. Ooh, don't know how to recognize others. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. So obviously right now I feel like it's like a joke to say with the world that we're in right now, but whatever, with the world that we're in right now, fear is really showing up in our lives in so many different ways. So we have the pandemic fear, the energy of like fear being drummed up in the media, which is a real thing. People in your life that have differing levels of fear and anxiety and worry around the state of COVID, around the state of how we should manage COVID, not manage COVID. We know that our country is incredibly polarized. Speaking of like yesterday's conversation about, the vibration of guilt being super low, fear is also pretty low vibe as well. So it's heavy. It's like the heaviness that we are just sitting in. It's almost like just walking outside and just being able to feel like thick air of fear. So yes, some of that might be from the world and whatever you're engaging with that's like inspiring more and more and more fear. And then there's the other part of it that like once it is in your system, then triggering your own fear. So then your fear starts to like drum up. So there's that kind of dynamic that we're having. And I may have just said this, but like, we feel unsafe when we don't know something. We're trained to feel safe when we are in authority in a space or when there's nothing else to learn. So, I mean, I'm jokingly calling myself the CLO, but I think it's actually like, because I'm trying to wear this posture of being comfortable in the uncertainty of any moment, because that is the only certain thing, right? That we are living in uncertainty all the time. And when you are in a posture of, knowing something and being a knower in general, being somebody who believes that you have to know things, your energy is closed off and contracted. You're not available for new information about yourself, about COVID, about, the world at large. You have to create, I almost imagine like crystallized pathways in your brain that are just hardened and the same loops run over and over and over again. And I mean, yeah, that will give you a very tiny world and will help you to feel secure in that really tiny world. It doesn't really give you any coping tools if something else big happens or comes into your world. However, though, like, if you're looping on what you already know, then you might feel a sense of safety and security, which we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing a lot of individuals in this world who are choosing to stay in this pattern of, what they believe to be true and holding on to it incredibly stubbornly and not leaving any room for other ideas and other truths. I know I've mentioned this in the past couple of evenings. We are in I don't know if I explained it in this way, but I talk about this stuff all the time. So forgive me if I'm saying it again. However, we are in a nodal cycle from an astrological perspective of a Gemini North Node and Sagittarius South Node. And from the energy of that is us leaving these systems, these ideas of truth that we've believed that were true and that we've held on very stubbornly to as a collective and individually, in favor of, this is if you're like going with the flow, right? In favor of more of this Gemini energy of seeing things from multiple sides and creating what is true from that, and being open to new ideas and being able to find acceptance for different facets of other people. But then that usually starts from finding acceptance for the different facets of yourself, including the part of you that gets triggered in fear, the part of you that gets triggered in anger, justified anger, grief, guilt, hatred even, So the more we can apply the beauty of the positives, or I don't know what they call it, the shadow or the light side. So like the shadow side of a sign would be like the negative traits, and the light side of the sign is, the higher vibrational traits, whatever you want to call it. If we can embody some of these positive sides of these traits, of the Gemini traits, that will help us. It'll inform the way that we can operate and the way that the world is moving, whether or not you want to be on board. But all of you that are here are clearly on board. There was something else I was going to say about that, and it just left my mind. The other thing about Gemini energy is it's a lot of information. Just like think about, it's very airy, it's swirling information. So we're getting hit with a lot of things, a lot of different perspectives, and it's forcing us to find our like personal sovereignty here, to find our own authority, to find our own truth, and to then operate from that space. And so, that's what this work is basically all about. Maybe I went on a tangent there, but going back to the pandemic fear, how do we work with this like swirling fear that is either intentionally produced by media outlets or other people who are trying to control, even if it's like family members or, things like that. Like my husband has like a very intense relationship with COVID, like a very, very conservative relationship with COVID. And I have a more, in my mind, it's rational, but to him, it's like not safe. And the ability to be able to control every single thing as much as possible provides him a sense of security and safety. And everybody has different levels of that. So how do we find a way to coexist in spaces where there are different levels of fear and anxiety? So part of the way to work with that, in my opinion, is to build, so thinking about how what's two things. It's noticing how much you are being able to identify if it's your fear or not your fear. So I'll go into that in just a second. And sometimes it is going to be murky. So don't like try too hard to identify with it. But have you ever had that experience of okay, I'll give you like two examples, or maybe just this one. But when I was turning 30, I remember that I was like feeling really good about myself, but I was like, but should I? Like, I felt like I should be stressing over turning 30 because all the females in my life that turned 30 before me, I was like the younger one of my friends, all had like major breakdowns when they turned 30. And it was like, oh my God, I haven't done this, and this. Or like that was just a moment for them to kind of reevaluate their life. And when I was turning 30, like I was about to get married, about to move across the country. I was like the fittest I'd ever been. I felt really healthy. And I felt just like really awesome. And I remember like distinctively being like getting caught up in this anxiety that I started like drumming up within myself. And then I was like, wait a second, I can choose. Like, is this something that I believe I'm supposed to be acting like or supposed to be embodying as mine? Or is this something that is like from the world that I don't need to engage with? So I chose to not engage with it. And I threw myself, well, my husband helped me throw this like bomb ass party and we had a great time. And it was amazing. I love turning 30 and my 30s have been awesome. Then the next, like another space was just at this election. I felt, I did my part. I voted in the way that I believed to be the best option. And I felt like this energy of nerves. And I mean, you go outside and you see like, I mean, in our neighborhood, there are people that are fighting and literally like cops needed to be called, things of that nature. And you're like seeing that all over the internet and the news and all of the anxiety around it, around like the fear of like what happens if whoever takes over. And then also the apathy, all those things. But I remember having a moment of just thinking, oh, am I supposed to be feeling this anxiety, or do I believe I'm supposed to be feeling this way? Or is this a way I actually truly believe I actually feel? So that's one way you can just sort of tune into it. Like I was feeling the energy kind of building in my body. And then I was like, what is, that feels a little bit different than normal. So what is that? And then asking, is this mine or is this somebody else's? Oftentimes when you ask yourself, you'll be able to discern, like your higher voice, your higher wisdom will come forward for you. Now, sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes it's a little bit of both, and that's okay. Oftentimes there's like, we want to, there's that whole concept of like group think or whatever, like you're going to think what other people think, because if we all think the same thing, then it'll make us feel safe. And in certain, that kind of like links us to the concept of like having a loyalty to a, an idea, an illusion, an idea that's like widely held to be true in certain areas of the world or all over the world, or however you want to think about it. And so it's really about just like challenging yourself. Like, is this something that I actually do subscribe to? And if I don't want to be that way, if I don't want to subscribe to it, what does that look like to me if I don't? And is that too scary? It's sort of like baby stepping yourself out of it. I feel like going back to the 30th birthday thing, like I had enough, I knew enough about where I was in my life to be able to feel strong enough to detach from that belief that I needed to be all stressing about my age. But in other cases, it's harder to detach because you might have something underneath there, like a deep loyalty to your family system, or a collective of people, or even just to the idea because you've carried it for so long and it has served you in some way. Well, that's going down another tangent. So we'll just keep it. We'll keep it here. So let me know if this is resonating so far for you and if you have any questions. I also just want to acknowledge that, with this fear, thinking back to the neural pathway, like your brain takes a path through your body. I mean, I'm just totally butchering the very scientific way of describing what happens in your system. So, but quite frankly, I don't feel like I have the mental capacity to actually speak it in the correct way. So just take this as a metaphor. When you have a feeling come up, your brain is triggered, and then it goes, there's a pathway where a neuron goes into, and links into a cell, and that's in different parts of your body or whatever. So when fear is triggered, then this like part of my brain gets activated and then shoots these like neurons into my kidneys, because that's where one place where fear is stored. So what happens is when that loop goes on like over and over and over again, it like creates an automatic reaction. Our brain's job is to look for coherence. So if you're feeling a fear come up or feeling anxiety come forward, then your brain, and you attach to it, and your brain is linking that whole loop, then your brain starts to look for reasons why this is true. So it's going to start putting together reasons why, even if you aren't consciously trying. And if you imagine that firing over and over and over and over, then that pathway, kind of like a muscle being worked out a lot, is going to be very strong and very automatic to you. So this might be easier to like connect to, but somebody that you know in your life that is always angry, like their anger pathway is like way overworked. It's just like super normal, or anxious or whatever. So what we want to do is obviously understand that system that's happening, that process that's happening in your body and with your mind. And I mean, obviously we're going to do some clearing and stuff tonight, but I would actively then look for ways to strengthen the pathway that is love, allowing the pathway of love. This is why a lot of people talk about gratitude journals and appreciation lists, because that helps to build, seeing the positives. I tend to, totally transparently tend to do gratitude lists for a certain amount of time, and then I get over it, and then I, fall out of it, and then I come back into it. Oftentimes when I am finding myself in a situation that feels too overwhelming or heavy, I will then just, like I keep saying, tune into what I need in the moment, and then allow myself to be like, oh, okay, you probably could slow down, take some time to journal what is actually going well right now. How can I notice the positives about COVID? Like, what are the 5 good things that have come to me from this experience of COVID? And I know it's like a really hard thing to get into. So maybe if it's not COVID, you pick something else that would be easier for you to link to, because all you really need to do is start building that space of love and appreciation to help balance that out. And just thinking about, like, on a global perspective, I haven't listened to this article or this news article yet, but I had a mentor yesterday tell me about, I think it was on NPR or something. They were talking about Australia and how they are handling COVID, and that there were like 6 new cases last week, and like that's it. And then a few days before, I was hearing about this woman whose partner is Kiwi, and they just went to New Zealand for that's where they're living now for some time. And she explained what they had to do when they got there. They had to be, confined for 14 days, and there's like military, like making sure you don't leave your hotel room and all this stuff. But then they got out, and like there's no COVID. And being able to, because in my mind, it's like it's everywhere, and we have a really serious situation on our hands here in the States and, other parts of the world as well. But being able to see that other areas of the world are treating this differently and actually able to handle it differently shows my brain that it's possible, that there's like another vibration possible. And then there's also the concept that, when thinking about New Zealand and Australia, when enough people are on board with like lifting the ship is really light to carry. And it actually helps change the culture and change the energy of the space. And so that's kind of what I mean by starting with that work within yourself, and getting yourself clear, getting yourself in touch with your intuition and being able to operate from your authenticity. Like that's like basically our purpose here in life. Like the, underlying mission is to just like be yourself. And so the more and more you're able to like take off these layers that are from the world, and maybe that you've like held on very dearly because you've created beliefs out of them, the better and better, the lighter and lighter the world will be. That's my theory. Take it or leave it if that doesn't make sense. So how to identify instinct versus a fear. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to get into that in just a moment, I think. So let me just double check. Let's see. Okay, the other thing I wanted, before I dive into that, thank you for that question. I wanted to also bring up, and I'm noticing the time, so I knew I had like maybe too much to share about fear today, but I also just wanted to bring up the kind of fear that can show up that keeps you from doing something that you actually really want to do. So going back to like shifting your belief systems and removing these extra layers of stuff that isn't you, that keeps you from being your authentic self, that experience like comes with a lot of anxieties and fears and worries about, triggering like abandonment wounds, or, the potential of being rejected by other people when you are showing up as like your full self. And so I just wanted to touch on how I like to handle that, because I've been dealing with that a lot this year, in just, starting coming out, with my spiritual coming out of the closet, and also, fully stepping into doing this as a practice versus having my corporate job, and, kind of holding back in areas because there's this fear that if I really show up and I really tell you all what I really think, then people will think I'm like crazy, or, they'll want to ostracize me, or my friends won't be my friends anymore, or things like that. And so one way I work with that is to, instead of, I used to just like see that fear and do it anyway, because I'm like very fiery, and I'll be like, yeah, I can, just push through this shit and make it work for me. And, I've had like, emotional hangovers afterward. So what I've started doing in those situations is to see the fear that shows up before me, and really, like, again, I keep saying tend to it, but tend to what that is. Like, okay, I know that part of you is really afraid of this right now, and I'm just letting you know. And it's really like talking to your ego, like, because it's trying to protect you, from being rejected or all those things. And I'm just like, okay, I see you, and I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to do this anyway, but we're going to be okay. And just like, almost like talking to a kid about it. Or I like to imagine it as like I think I've already maybe shared this with one or two of you, but you're sort of like that drunk person at a party. So like your ego that's like overactive in fear, that's like, oh my God, you can't do this, or this is too scary for you to do. Just kind of, settling them down in the corner and like putting them in the chair like you would the drunk guy at the party that is like getting boisterous and clearly doesn't understand that, like, this isn't the place or time for that situation to happen, or maybe never, but or that they need a little bit of water. So you're just going to like set them down gently and maybe bring him a little fizzy water and like hang out with him for a moment, and then go back to your friends when he's like settled. That is kind of the way I treat those moments of fear. So skipping down to your question, Shauna, so there's a different way to, and this is like sort of new to me, so maybe you already know this concept, but there's a different way of relating to your fear. And, it's this fear intuition connection that essentially, because fear is instinctual, it's like something that is there, it's here for our survival. And we all know that we don't need to be in fear as much as we used to be, but our bodies are really used to that, and blah, blah, blah. But, we can think about it as two sides of the same coin. When you are engaging with it as fear, then it will show up to you as fear. But if you're using it as information, then you can lean into what it's telling you and use it as intuition. And the woman that I was talking about the first day, I don't know why I can't get her name right, Carla McLaren, from this book, telling you, you've got to get this book if you're interested. I mean, it's a pretty long book, but I just pick it up randomly and start learning new shit from it. It's insane. But the way she talks about this type of fear, and like in human design, we talk about fear and intuition being two sides of the same coin. Essentially fear and instinct, because your instinct is related to your intuition. She calls it free-flowing fear. When you allow your fear to flow freely through your system, through your mind, it actually identifies itself as information for you and helps you to navigate the world fairly painlessly, because it can see all the things that it needs to work through. And what happens with us, we've just been taught over and over and over again to misidentify fear. And we commonly mistake it for worry or anxiety or trepidation, terror, or panic, which are often experiences that we have after something fearful has happened. So I'm just going to read you this quick passage from that book about this free-flowing fear that is basically your intuition. So free-flowing fear will make you intuitive, agile, balanced, and safe, not because you meekly tiptoe through life to avoid all possible dangers, but because you can trust yourself, your instincts, and your resourcefulness in each moment. If you're generally capable, naturally intuitive, and focused, basically if you're tuned into your fear, and we'll get into the boundaries in just a moment, you're actually already connected to your flowing fear, even though you may not think of yourself as fearful. So like we don't call ourselves fearful when we're being really intuitive. That's like not something we've learned in our world. She says, all you need to do now is to name your fear as itself, welcome it, and thank it for all its help. Fear is not your enemy. In fact, it may well be the best friend that you have. She talks about this concept of your fear, again, being that intuition and the instincts, and your anger, like we've been talking about the anger being your boundary. And anger creates your boundary. If you have healthy flowing anger, you know when to tweak the boundary. That means your body is protected, your psyche is protected from the external circumstances. So if you imagine, I love this example or this metaphor of a car that is taken care of, that has the tires checked, that has good whatever driving system, has the GPS all loaded up. That would be a car, like the car body. The car is the boundary. And then as you're driving, you can trust that when you put on the brakes, it's actually going to work. And when you're in the zone of driving and you can like sense when people are going to like cut in front of you and to just like slow down or to move over or whatever, that is your fear instinctually walking you through life. Does that make sense? Give me like a little note or a thumbs up or something if that's making sense. Got a couple of thumbs ups. Cool. Yay. Isn't that so interesting? I think that's so interesting to like reframe fear in this way. So what we're talking about with all this like pandemic fear is actually probably like triggered anxieties and worries, but we call it fear. So I didn't want to like be like, it's not fear, it's this. It's actually interesting because, from a marketing perspective, fear drives action in people. And so it's actually a very intentional tactic that companies use, the media uses to control and to drive action, to drive people into a certain space. So keep that in mind. Okay. I think, I want to make sure that we have some time to journal. So I think we're going to move into that space right now. That's kind of where I am with all the fear talk. Since you've been here the other evenings, I'll just go ahead and get us going. And I'll put a timer on. And just so you know how the rest of this will go, we'll journal, probably a little less time than before, but you're always welcome, obviously, to continue after. And I often will just set like a 20-minute timer or something to carve out that space of journaling. That always helps me. And then we are going to shift some of the energy. And then we'll do the statements. And then like last night, we'll actually share afterwards. So if you want to hang out to share and connect, I'm going to turn off the recording and then we'll have space for any of that you may want to do. So let's get this going. Share sound. Oh, I guess I have to open that, don't I? Where'd it go? Here we are. Okay. Awesome. So here are the prompts for today. I'll put our Ganesh back on. And I'll come back in about 5 minutes.
Om Gam Ganapate Namah. 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 Om Gam Ganapate
Okay.
Namah.
Go ahead and wrap up your thoughts.
Om Gam Ganapate Namah.
And let's see. I hope you enjoyed the grammatical errors and typos. Boy, I was changing tenses last minute, and the hyper perfectionist in me saw that, and I actually started laughing. So I was like, okay, this is like total progress. A younger version of myself would be mortified. So thank you for enjoying. I will fix those for the Facebook group. Okay, so I know you didn't notice. It was like, how am I feeling about? Really, I wanted to switch it from, because I was typing it initially from like an I standpoint, but I did all of the questions earlier in this week from a you standpoint. So I was like switching it to that, and I did not do that correctly at all. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to be human. And I love that you didn't even notice, Lindsay. I was like, oh gosh. Okay. So I know that that was a little bit quick. Hopefully you have had a moment to even just sense into whatever questions jumped out to you. And yeah, I'm really appreciating doing this exercise of moving the energy with this group. So I hope you're enjoying it as well. And let me just tune into what we need to move here in terms of this excess fear and anxiety and worry that we are carrying collectively. Okay, so we're going to start with our favorite, the liver, depression. So we're going to do the palm over your liver, bottom right rib area, and then the back of your hand over the forehead. When you're ready with that, just think of depression. And also that sense of feeling stuck. Depression can kind of feel like, I'm stuck in this, I'm not going to be able to shift. So with that, go ahead and breathe 3 breaths in your nose and out your mouth. Good. When you're ready, you can release. Okay. Still in the liver. Anger, resentment, frustration, depression, stubbornness. So you're going to do the opposite. So the back of your hand over the liver space, and then the palm over the forehead. And stubbornness, maybe holding on to beliefs about what you're supposed to be afraid of right now, or whatever that means to you. So go ahead and breathe. And I don't know if I explained this before, but what we're essentially doing is interrupting that neural pathway in relationship to fear. So with that, creating openness in your system and balance so that, that channel of unconditional love, that healing energy can just flow through you. Let's see. Okay. All right. We're just going to hang out in the liver for a minute. So resentment. So you're going to do the back of your hand on both the liver and the forehead. And think of resentment, how any resentment you're holding on to around this fear. And go ahead and breathe. Good. Good. I guess that was it. We just had a few liver balances. For those of you who missed yesterday, we went into other organs. We weren't just in the liver, so you missed out. Anyway, okay. I hope you're feeling a little more settled. And it's interesting that we had a lot less today than we did the last couple of days. And I can feel myself being like insecure, fully yawning on screen. So I hope you enjoyed that too, if you noticed. Okay, let's dive into statements. We have 10 minutes left, and we'll have plenty of time for statements and then to get into some of the sharing if anyone wants to share. So what we'll do here is just a reminder, if you are able to have your feet flat on the ground, great. If not, just have your legs uncrossed. We're just gonna allow our system to be really open. And then one thing you can do, I haven't mentioned this, but this space up here, like the thymus gland, I call it the high heart, is a fear release point. So you can kind of if you can see where maybe you can't tell on the screen, but like where the collarbone points are, you can just take your thumb and your forefinger and rub there, like kind of like dig in. Or I like to just like kind of rub this whole area. And that's one place in our system that we process fear. And just like, holding on to something tightly that makes us nervous to let go of. So that's something that you can always tend to. You might notice that when you're feeling anxiety, your chest tightens up. So adding some energy, some heat there, it's really helpful. Another space is your kidneys. So, and your like adrenal gland space. So you can just take your hands, the palms, and like rub your kidneys as well. If you're really in a luxury setup, you can put a pillow against your kidneys and then you can rub this space if you'd like. But feel free to use those at any moment when you're feeling overwhelmed or trying to even tune into, is this my fear? Is this somebody else's fear? Okay, let's go ahead and start with a deep breath in your nose and out your mouth. Good. All right, now just repeat after me. I forgive myself for believing I have to take on other people's fear, even when I don't know I'm doing it. And breathe. I forgive myself for any time I have believed I was powerless in the midst of fear, anxiety, and worry. And breathe. I forgive the world for being so fucking terrifying right now. And breathe. I love and accept the part of me who is afraid of the future. And breathe. I love and accept myself, stepping into my power, even when I'm afraid of living in uncertainty. And breathe. I forgive myself for believing that in order to be my whole powerful self, I cannot be afraid. Yeah. And breathe. Yeah, I forgive myself for any time that I believe this is just too hard. Yeah, and breathe. I love and accept my fear and open up space to use it for good. And breathe. I call up the excess worry, anxiety, and panic from each and every cell of my being. And I release it with love and gratitude. And breathe. Without this misconception of fear, I love and accept connecting more deeply and therefore knowing my intuition. And breathe. I give myself permission to experience and generate peace and groundedness even in the midst of swirling fears and anxieties. And breathe. And so it is. Okay. Before we stop recording, and as you're coming kind of back to the space, a couple of tools I just wanted to share around, grounding and how to kind of get into your own system and your own sovereignty, your own power, which you may already know. So I'm just going to share them anyway, in case it's an old idea that might re-inspire you. But just allowing yourself to ground each day in some way. So what I do when I have excess energy moving through me and I'm feeling anxiety is I literally will go outside and sometimes like touch the earth, like put my hands on the earth and just breathe and just like give it to her. Just like, thank you for taking this. Thank you for composting this. Sometimes I will, some of the people I've worked with already know this, but I like to speak into my water. So I'll tell my tea as I'm making it, or I'll set like a glass of water overnight with affirmations and intentions for grounding or for openness for love. The molecules of water actually have a memory and they will conform to the vibration of your language, which makes you think we're filled with water. So we also are carrying that vibration within us. And there's a lot of power in that kind of cuckoo offering. So take that or leave it. Shaking your body out. Like, animals, I'm sure you've heard this before, but, you think about ducks when they come out of water and they like shake their self really, intensely, or, your dog when they're done for taking a walk or whatever, they shake. It's actually a wonderful method to release excess energy out of your system. And it's like a trauma release tool as well. Washing your hands with, like, after having a conversation with someone that's like just drumming up your anxiety. So if you weren't able to kind of like protect your boundary and feel like they're not penetrating your space and whatever, don't get upset with yourself. Just, go and like wash your hands and intentionally like wash that away. You can also just rub your hands together and like shake them out. And then again, those fear release points that I was sharing, just doing some deep breathing. There are so many tools. There's so many like simple breathwork techniques as well that you can look up to check into to help manage, again, we're just living in a space where there's just a shit ton of excess of this low vibration, especially here. Well, those of us that are in the States, I can't speak to all over the world, obviously, but especially here. And, protecting ourselves and actually like, being in our best vibration that we can be will help lift everybody else, as I keep saying every day. So with that, I'm going to close. So for those that are watching this as a replay, thank you for joining. We are going to pause now and share.